Speed kills, and the Alabama Crimson Tide just got one of the fastest playmakers in all of high school football, Aaron Anderson from Louisiana, a former LSU commit, and we need to talk about why this speedy wide receiver is such an important get for the Crimson Tide class. Before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I want to hear from you. Hop down to the comments. Give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Are you excited that Anderson is now taking his talents to the Crimson Tide? Let me know what you're thinking. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoy this content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions, though small, are really massive to content creators such as myself and getting both picked up and maintained by the YouTube algorithm. But with all of that being said, let's talk about this because this was something that last night when I got the notification, I was extremely happy about. And there was some indication that good news was coming down the pipeline because Pete Golding yesterday tweeted the elephant emoji, kind of signaling that someone had committed. Fast forward and we find out that it is Speedster out of Louisiana, the 115th best player in all of high school football, the 16th best receiver, Aaron Anderson. And this young man can straight up fly. He has got verifiable track speed and has been a menace not only on the football field, but on the track. This young man has got the juice, and that is going to be a welcome addition to the Crimson Tide, especially when you look at the slot position, because goodness gracious, the future of the slot position for Alabama is really in good hands. I mean, when we look at the slot position in particular and add in Anderson, you're looking at JoJo Earl, you're looking at Christian Leary, you're looking at Tyu Jones-Bell, and now you're looking at an Aaron Anderson. That is a group of wide receivers that most other colleges would be over the moon happy to have through a 6-year period. Alabama will have them all on campus at the same time. That is astronomical. This young man is someone who I know Alabama fans are very happy that he flipped. He was originally committed to LSU, was going to stay home and do big things for that university. But ultimately, we saw in an interview yesterday after his game, to which he committed during halftime, he talked about the biggest reason he decommitted from LSU, saying that he kind of had an understanding with Coach Orgeron, that as long as Orgeron was there, Anderson would be there. But when Orgeron was announced that he would no longer be the head coach of LSU next year, that was the writing on the wall for Aaron Anderson, and he even commented that he'd already kind of known that if that move happened, Alabama was the place he ultimately wanted to go. And look, why not? Since the Julio Jones draft, Alabama has put 7 wide receivers into the first round of the NFL draft, and if Jamison Williams keeps balling out in the way he is, that might be 8. Alabama has been on an unrealistic streak with the wide receiver position, which is really interesting to think about when you typically think of what Alabama has been known for on a national scale. Of course, us Tide fans have a little bit of a different view, but on a national scale, Alabama's always been kind of looked at as this defensive juggernaut. But when you look at the last few years, the offensive production from Alabama cannot be ignored, and especially at the wide receiver position, which is why I've said now for going on a year and a half, Alabama is wide receiver U. When you look at the first round receivers, from Julio Jones to Amari Cooper to Calvin Ridley, Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, it is astronomical what they've been able to do, and that's only counting the first round guys. In that same time span, they've put 14 individuals who catch the football into the NFL, a rate that just cannot be replicated, even by institutions that we traditionally view as powerhouses on the offensive side of the football and at the receiving position. Just to give you an understanding of how dominant Alabama has been in that time frame. But moving forward, what does this do for the Crimson Tide's class? Well, the Crimson Tide still sit at second in the nation with 18 commitments. Something I've talked about before is really impressive. Alabama is one of only a handful of institutions within the top 10 that are placed where they are with under 20 commitments. And having under 20 commitments with the class already as good as it is, a 94 plus on average recruit rating, which is unbelievable. And then 24/7 Sports Class Calculator gives them a projected score of 292.63 with the addition of Anderson. Alabama's class is in fantastic position. Even if they had 20 commitments, they'd still be in prime position. but having 18 gives them so much flexibility with the remaining spots in a really good time frame, with early signing day coming up in December and then ultimately traditional signing day shortly thereafter. Alabama's in a really good position right now to seal up yet another impeccable class. But when you look right now, of the 18 individuals in this Alabama Crimson Tide class, 15 of them rank within the top 300 players in all of high school football, which really goes to show how recruiting at Alabama has just been on another level. You know, we talked about last year's class and how last year's class is statistically the greatest recruiting class of all time. This year's recruiting class is on pace to not be very far behind that, and I have bad news for anybody watching this video who's not an Alabama fan. Go back and look at the class of 2023 and see how many of those high-powered 5-stars have roots to Alabama. The Crimson Tide's 23 class could shake up to be one that is going to be insanely talented when you look at the talent in the state of Alabama. Alabama's recruiting is not going anywhere, and I don't think anybody expected it to, but it's just been so wild to see over the past few years the ebbs and flows of the Crimson Tide and what they do as it pertains to recruiting. You remember a year and a half ago, last April, everybody thought the world was ending because Alabama, ranked around 55th in the nation, ended up finishing with the greatest recruiting class of all time. This year, Alabama was like 30th in the nation at one point and has really turned it on. It just goes to show that at the end of the day, no matter who leaves, Nick Saban is the one thing holding this cogwheel up. He, plus the history the University of Alabama has, when you combine those two, great things happen. But Nick Saban is the GOAT in coaching, in production, and in recruiting for a reason. And this is a really, really awesome get for the Crimson Tide. What this does do is give the Tide dynamic offensive weapons. And just to name a few, you look at 5-star quarterback Ty Simpson, 5-star running back Emmanuel Henderson. You look now Aaron Anderson, in addition to one of the fastest risers in the nation in Amari Nablack. Someone, when he committed, I thought would end up being ranked right at around 100, if not a little bit higher, based on his talent. I think the world is his oyster. It's just where he was ranked relative to how much time was left in the class. It would be very hard for him to continue rising. However, he has been on a monumental rise, and it is going to be very fascinating to see where he ends up, because Nick Saban had unbelievably high praise for that young man, comparing him to a defensive great and an offensive great. So, Amari Nablack is someone I think every Crimson Tide fan is very excited to see. It's going to be very interesting where he ends up. But Aaron Anderson is another one that could rise. Do not be surprised at the end of the cycle if Aaron Anderson is not only a top 100 player, but a top 10 wide receiver. That is my projection here today. I think he will absolutely be ranked within the top wide receivers when it's all said and done. Watch his senior tape, watch his junior tape. The young man is electric, and Alabama fans need to be over the moon that he is going to Crimson Tide because he's very talented. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.